Hey everyone, I'm Gracie, and welcome to Grace of a Military Child podcast. The world should know how unique military children are. We may look like normal children on the outside, but we go through some pretty extraordinary circumstances that shape us to the leaders we are today. That is the sole purpose of this podcast, to share our stories to the world. Hi, Deryn. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. So tell me a little bit about who served in the military and what branch and what kind of things like that.
Okay. So my dad was the one who served, and he joined in 1998. And the real reason why he joined is to get out of his small town because he wanted like a really quick escape and also a really good job and a career. And so he did join, and then he left in June. And then let's see, he was stationed at Fort Campbell, I assume, for a really long time. And then eventually he met my mom on a blind date. And I think that's really funny because they talk about it still to this day. They're like, I just cannot believe like they were on like a blind date, and you know what I mean? Now they're married and all this stuff. It's crazy. But yeah, and then he was in the 101st, and he was an Army infantry man. And yeah, that's pretty much the beginning of that. So
yeah. So you obviously were not around when he first joined in the military, since your parents hadn't even met yet, which is crazy that they met on a blind date for sure. And then, they're married. They have, kids now and still together. And that's really awesome. And then when you were born, do you remember a lot about the military life in your first few years?
I remember like bits and pieces. I know that there's this one memory. I don't know if there's a picture or not, but I do remember when it was my sister was also like, I guess 2 or 3. I could be wrong. But we were at some sort of ceremony where he was getting something, and they were like recognizing him and the family and whatnot. And so they went up there, and I remember being like terrified of all the people. And like I remember like hiding behind my mom, and it was so funny. But yeah, I do remember bits and pieces, like during like sometimes in the summer they would have like these water slides, and like all the families and like kids went out, and I think it was like a barbecue grill thing. I don't really remember, but I remember going to those and doing small events and stuff.
Yeah, those are always fun. I have memories of doing those. I was, around 8 or 9 at the time when my dad rejoined. And so we did all the family events, and those were some of the funnest things to do because you were around other military kids and, their families. So that was always really exciting and something I'd look forward to. Do you remember moving around? Did you move around a lot?
Yeah, so I was born in Clarksville and pretty much grew up there until my dad got injured. And then after he got injured, my mom would go back and forth like every other week to DC. Like she would I think it was a Wednesday. So like Wednesday she would be here for a week, and then the next Wednesday she'd fly out to DC, and then back and forth, back and forth. And she did that for a really long time. And then eventually he got stable and was able to move out of the hospital. So me and my sister were able to move up there. And we stayed up there in Maryland for like 2 years. And honestly, it was so fun. I loved being there. I would move back in a heartbeat. Like if I had an opportunity right now, or if like a school gave me an offer, I would be like, I would be there.
I'm out. Yeah. It's so weird that, such a terrible situation like an injury is actually some of the funnest times. Yeah, because, Texas is my home now. Like, I could not imagine where I would be without Texas in my life. And, the people I've met, the experiences that I've had, and as bad as it seems, like I would not be doing half the things I do today if it wasn't for, such a catastrophic incident like the injury happened. So,
yeah, me too. Let's see. So my dad was injured in January 2011, and he stepped on a 40-pound bomb. And luckily, he was the only one that was injured. So that was good. But this is so specific. Like, I think I said that. Sometimes I mess up that word. Sorry. But I remember getting ready for dance. This I'll follow up with this. But I was getting ready for dance, and my mom got a phone call, and it was fine until I was saying, I was coming down the stairs. This is when we actually had 2 stories instead of 1. And I was coming down the stairs, and like me and my sister like just sitting down, and like my mom got a phone call, and I could tell like she was upset, but she was trying to hold it together, you know what I mean? Because like we would be like, what's wrong? What's wrong?
Right.
And she was gonna take us. I think I don't remember. She's probably gonna hear this later and be like, "You're so stupid." I'm just kidding.
You messed up the story.
Yeah, for real. But my friend's dad came and picked us up, and we went all the dance. And then when we came back, she told us what happened. And myself, me being just so curious, I was like, "But how is he gonna pee now he doesn't have legs?" It was so funny because my mom was like expecting the worst possible things. Like, is he gonna die? Is he gonna da, 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 da? And I was like, how is he gonna pee? That was my only concern. And I think that's so funny still to this day because, you know, I was just worried. I was worried about this man's bladder, you know? But yeah, after all the stuff, like he was fine and stable and whatnot. We were like, when are we going to go up there? And then eventually we did. And we met in a Fisher house. And it was really cool. But I also think this is a funny memory because I remember on the way, like it was like our first plane ride like that we remember. And when we landed and we got to the base, there was like McDonald's on the base. And so they got us McDonald's. And we were going to the Fisher house. We're like, okay, we're going to stay here. And like, you know, we're going to see your dad in the hospital. We're like, oh, okay, cool, whatnot. They had a playground. We were so excited.
Yeah.
And we have our Happy Meals in our hands and we start walking into the doors of the building. And then my Happy Meal gets ripped out of my hands. And I'm like, hold on. You know what I mean? I was like upset. And then I walk further and I see my dad and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. My dad, love you. But where's my Happy Meal? I just remember that because I was just like, I don't remember who did this. And my mom told me, but like, I just don't remember. It was just so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like from there on though, like I literally love Maryland. Like I love all the, like, I hate to say like tourism just because like sometimes it is so annoying, but I really did like it. And I like all the museums and like how you can literally walk down the street and be at a grocery store or a mall or this and that. And it was just so nice. And like, honestly, I love Maryland. Like I always want to go back and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I mean, you had the privilege of living there and, you know, still being a tourist at the same time, going to the museums and seeing everything there. And I remember going, you know, to DC so many times and just wanting to go to museums and see things. And it's so incredible. And yeah, the malls were so much fun and all that. So I'm sure it was really fun to live there and, you know, actually be a family there too.
Yeah, it was really nice, especially because during that time, like my dad was pretty much gone like half of my life. So like I still like, I mean, obviously I knew my dad and whatnot, but like I still wasn't really close to him. But because we were able to move up there and like, you know, move around all together, like I got really close to him and now we're like best friends. And so that's really like really, really fun. And we, you know, we cause a lot of drama in our family just for fun. And we cause trouble, but it was just really nice though, because we were also homeschooled because we couldn't go into the schools because of all this crap, you know, whatnot. So we decided to, like, we're going to be homeschooled. And it was really nice though, because like all the museums and all the like basically the really cool stuff is pretty much free or for like a really good price, you know?
Yeah.
And so like when my dad would go to the hospital, because he had to go like every day for like physical therapy or for this and this and this, you know, all that crap. My mom would be like, oh, you know, well, since he's gone, let's go to the science museum or let's go to this, this, and this. And so like those were like some of my like key memories. And I remember so specifically, like every time I go, I have to go, you know, those yellow carts that have like the hot dogs and the ice cream.
Yes.
Every time
on the side of the street.
I love those. After every museum, I would go and get a ice cream like cookie sandwich or like the chocolate chips. And so every time we go to DC now, I'm like, I have to have one of those cookies. They're so good.
It brings back the memories too.
It does. And it's just like, it's so fun because like my sister, I would get that, and she would get like the SpongeBob ice cream or like
Oh
the
yeah.
ones with the gumball eyes. It was so
Mm-hmm.
funny.
Yeah. And just those memories make such a hard time so much easier. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for us, it was going to like basketball games and hockey
Mm-hmm.
games and doing all those things. And then, even going to the river walk, the Alamo, like downtown San Antonio, like those are memories that made such a hard time so much easier. And I will cherish for the rest of my life for
Oh
sure.
yeah, me and my sister as well, because whenever the sad thing is like whenever he first got injured, like the first about like year-ish, we were like the only kids that were like of school age. Like they were either infants or toddlers, or they were like
Yeah.
super like old in comparison to us, you know what I mean? And so like we were basically each like our only friends until one day we were in the Fisher house, and I think either they moved in or like we moved in right after them, but there was this family, and I made a friend. Her name was Leah, and her favorite color was green. And I just remember like I was so happy that like there was somebody close to my age, and it was just like it was crazy because like we became good friends because like I said, there's like nobody else there, and
Yeah.
like we would go, and I think we did the Nickelodeons like the was it like the National Day of Play or something.
Oh,
We went
yes.
and we did that one year, and it was so funny
That's
because like it was
fun.
crazy because we've never experienced anything like it, and it was just so fun. And like I like occasionally I'll be scrolling through like Facebook or my memories, and I see like like pictures of us, and I'm like, oh,
Aw,
it's so cute.
that's so sweet. With, with our situation, my sister she became my best friend, like
Hmm.
through it all. Um, I will never forget the moment like we got the phone call. Like those are just moments that are now engraved
Hmm.
in my brain. And she she really didn't understand, because
Hmm.
she was 7, I believe. So she didn't understand like when mom dropped to her knees, like crying into the phone, like
Yeah.
what was going on. And then, we were out of the house within an hour. Like we went and stayed with friends for, a week. It was 4 days before we even got to see my mom and know what happened,
Hmm.
because it was just such a chaotic time. And then, you know, her and I were the only family really we had in Ohio, because
Hmm.
mom and dad both flew to Texas,
Yeah.
and they both met in Texas, and neither one of us were with them for the next month. Like
Hmm.
we were by ourselves, with staying with friends. So it was just the two of us that we had. And then going to the Fisher house, there were not many kids our age either. They were all toddlers. So we
Hmm.
made friends with toddlers
Yeah.
and but we just became best friends because that's all we had and that's all we knew.
That's pretty much how like yeah it was for us too. I mean like we were nice like all the babies and stuff like y'all,
Yeah.
but it was just like it wasn't necessarily as hard, but it was kind of just frustrating because we wanted to make like other friends and whatnot. And I mean like obviously we're not blaming anyone, but it was just like of course y'all don't have kids, you know what I mean? Because my parents would be like, oh this couple, they just got injured and they're coming. We're like, oh,
Do they
we're so
have
excited.
kids?
And then they were like, no. We were like, oh, okay.
Okay.
you know
Nice to know.
yeah.
We were fortunate that we went to school on base.
Hmm.
We transferred school to base, so we were able to make friends that way.
Hmm.
But even at the same point, they didn't understand the injury side
Oh
of it. It's
yes,
a whole
yes,
new thing. You
yes.
know, I was 9 when he got hurt, and I had to basically become a caregiver at age 9.
Me too. And that's exactly another thing. Like when I moved here to McMinnville, I literally could not make friends with like anybody because like
Yeah.
I mean obviously I would try and I'm really nice and whatnot, but like they just were not like their problems were so like minor in comparison to mine. And like I'm not saying that to be like, well, your problem's not as good as mine. No, it was
Yeah.
sincerely like their parents did not buy them a purse, and so they thought that was the end of the world. You know what I mean? I'm
Right.
just like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? And so like it was just such an eye-opening thing to come here and like those are people's problems. It's just
Yeah.
crazy. And I'm just like, holy crap.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. And, we're, my dad obviously retired, and,
Mm-hmm.
we're living the civilian side, and we're trying to live in a civilian like world now instead of the
Mm-hmm.
military. And people are like, of course my friends now are like used to it and whatever, but you still don't. It's so weird having to explain,
Mm-hmm.
you know, hey, my dad's in the military or was in the military, he doesn't have a leg now.
Mm-hmm.
And, the other one doesn't look the best. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's so weird having to have those interactions with these people trying to explain what
Yes.
happened.
Mm-hmm. That's like whenever I first moved here, and like I was like actually like the next year, it was like high school because I came here in eighth grade basically. And like I had like a few friends, like I'm still in friends with her. Her name's Brooke. And like first time she came over, like she knew that my dad didn't have legs, but it was just like, oh my gosh, like you know what I mean? Like she just didn't realize it. And
Yeah.
like she obviously, and like all my other friends that I have now, they don't care, but it's just like it's so awkward. It's not necessarily awkward to introduce, but it's just like how do you go about it to make it like comfortable for them in a way?
Right.
And so I just stopped like telling people because I like assumed they knew. And then like when
Yeah.
like new people would come over and they would see my dad, they kind of like freak out for a second. I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot to tell him. And it's just so funny because like I mean, to us it's not a big deal. And like my dad doesn't care. He's like, if you stare, it doesn't, you know what I mean? He
It doesn't
bother.
matter.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you saw your dad? I mean, other than the McDonald's, Happy Meal situation, do you remember like what you thought? Did you see pictures or anything before?
I don't think I think I saw pictures from like chest up where he was like doing this in the
Yeah.
hospital with like a bunch of tubes and stuff.
Right.
But I don't remember seeing and like a full picture of him. But when I did see him, I like looked at his legs and I looked at his arm and like because he had a pillow for his arm because he just got like surgery on his arm.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was like, I was looking and I was just like, huh. Oh well, it's my dad. I just moved on. Like I took like a second to process everything, and then I was just like, it's just my dad, and I just went up to him. You know what I mean? It was funny because I thought
it feels natural.
Yeah, it does. And like they brought, I think, I'm not sure if there was like a psychologist or anything, but they brought people in case like we would have a meltdown and neither of us did. And they were like really surprised just because they were prepared for the worst. And we were just like, it's just dad. And we just went up to him, hugged him, talked to him, whatnot. We're like, okay, we're going to go to the playground now. And just walked.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
It's definitely, I mean, I think it's more of the fact of, okay, you're alive and we miss you, like hello, instead of, being upset about what happened. Like, you had your time to cry about it and you got to move on at some point.
Yep. I was about to say, I don't really remember being like upset because it happened, but I do remember being frustrated because like when I was little, I just did not understand everything 100%. And so I'd be like, well, why can't he just walk on his legs? Like, I don't get it. You know what I mean? As a child, but like looking back now, I'm like, it takes time. You know what I mean? It takes time to heal this, like, and all this stuff. And it's just crazy just because like looking back now, it's a completely different perspective, obviously, because, I'm more understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like, it's just crazy how much like so much can change in like less than 10 years.
Yeah, for sure. And, we're about to hit our 10-year in November. And from, literally a hospital bed, to living a normal life again. I mean, as close to normal as it could get, but, and it's still a recovery process.
It is.
Every single day.
Yeah. And like whenever we moved back to Clarksville before we moved here, my dad started after like he was healed and he retired and all that, we moved back and he started getting sick and we were like, oh, you're just being dramatic. Cause you know how men are and their sickness and their man flu. And so we were like, oh, you're just being dramatic. You're just being dramatic. And he was like, no. And I don't remember what pushed us over the edge to take him to the hospital, but he went to the hospital and ended up having a flesh-eating bacteria in his back. Wow. And it was going for like his spine. And so that was like a very scary moment because like we just didn't know what was happening. And if we waited longer and like literally like a few days longer, it would have entered like his spine area and could have paralyzed him. So like it's just crazy.
So does man flu still exist in your family now?
Oh my gosh, yes. My mom, this is so funny. So before they realized that they were positive, my mom was just like, "You're just being dramatic. You're just being dramatic." He was like,
Yeah.
"No, like I don't feel good. Like this is different." She was like, "You're just being dramatic. You're just being dramatic." And then he got tested and was positive, and she was like, "I'm sorry."
So it
really
needs to
funny.
not exist anymore, right?
I guess so.
There's been so many incidents.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard, you know, because they're constantly in pain too.
Oh yes.
You know, it's
All the
hard
time.
to, live with that and say like, okay, I got a paper cut and,
Mhm. That's like
it
sometimes.
burns, but
Oh
whatever.
yes. That's like during the summer when I was doing like my tumbling and warm-ups and stuff for tryouts. I didn't tumble and whatnot for like so long. And then like I just went like full force, like I full out like everything. And then like a day or two later, my back was like trashed. Like it was so bad. And then come to find out it was my sciatic nerves and in my back.
Oh.
And so like I got to taste a little bit of what my dad went through, like goes through, you know what I mean? Because his nerves are just crazy. And I was just like, holy crap, like I cannot imagine dealing with this every single day because like it would just come in waves. Like I'd be perfectly fine and I moved one wrong way and my whole back would have a spasm. Like it was crazy. And I was just like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? Like it's just insane.
Yeah, for sure. So of course we have no sympathy, for them. We're like, just do it. Like, it's fine. Like, go for it. Like, you can still do that. But do you find that you have to help your dad a lot more for sure?
Yeah, especially like we moved into a house that is adapted for him, but like our spice cabinets are like higher up. Like they're not too high, but they're just high enough where he has to like extend or push himself up where he's on we call it his nubs, his feet.
Yep. Yes.
And so he has to stand up on it sometimes to get stuff. And so like we'll have to help him or we take out the trash or because we got new chickens, we got little baby chickens. And like we'll have to like help him and whatnot. And I mean, yeah, like we still help him for like a lot of the stuff that he does, but he's trying to be independent and whatnot. So I think it's just funny. It's just like, oh, improvement,
Yeah, for sure. And it's hard, like trying, because we're both adults now, we're trying to live our life, and, get our career started and everything. And, we're still caregivers. We're still,
like every time I come home from college, it's just like, it's nothing different. It's just like I come home from college and like I'm doing everything by myself and blah 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 blah. And then I come here and I'm like, oh yeah, like I have a family. Yeah. And then I come home and he's like, hey, can you get this? And I'm like, oh yeah, I just forget, you know what I mean? And it's not any different, but it's just like dang, just forgot how different like my two different lives are, you know what I mean?
Yeah. The life of an actual like adult and being yourself, and then you have your daughter roll at home that you're still a kid. And yeah, I get that. Did you of course cheerleading made you move onto campus even though you're fairly close. Do you miss living at home still?
I honestly just miss having like my own bedroom because like I mean my roommate and I get along fine, but it's just like I don't know, because I just like having my own space and I like whenever I either need to study or whatnot, just having my own space. But because we live on like, on campus, like I just have to go find a place to be by myself because like it's just so weird. It's just so weird. I don't know. I can't explain it. I don't know. It's so weird.
I'm sure. And that's like one of the reasons I chose to stay at home because I could not imagine. I mean, it's like gaining another sister more or less to some extent. Like, you argue and you fight. And I mean, my sister and I share a wall. Like that's enough. Like, and I don't think I could deal with someone else. I could have had a wonderful roommate and there's good people out there, but at the same point, it's hard to, change your whole life around to adapt to someone else as well.
Yeah. It's just crazy because like our schedules are pretty like similar, but we all have like we both have different like events. So like sometimes I'll be up at 8 o'clock in the morning, or she'll have to go to a meeting at like 9 o'clock at night. And it's just like trying to like find a balance is just harder because like there's random pop-up events or we have practice or da 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 da, you know. It's just crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And so you're cheerleading.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fun?
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it so much. I love it like 10 times more than high school just because like I liked cheering for my high school until about my sophomore year. And then I got benched my junior year and I have no idea why because I did score and I was in like the like top 5-ish for the scoring. So I was just really confused. But me and my other, she was in the same class as me and my friend, and we both got benched and we have no idea why still to this day. And then my senior year, and I've been on this team for 4 years, I get benched my senior year for no reason, and I get replaced with a freshman. I get replaced with a freshman.
In your senior year?
Yes, for a competition. And like I wasn't hurt. I didn't have any issues. My grades, like there was no reason for why I should be out. Yeah. And it was just like, it was just terrible because like it's my senior year and all 9 other seniors were on the floor and I'm just sitting by the mat. And I had all the skills. Yeah. And I had all the skills and everything. So like, I just don't know why. So, but yeah.
So college is definitely better.
It's 10 times more better. And I love it so much because it's just like, it's a completely different atmosphere. And like everyone wants to be there. It's not like they're like, oh, I have to go to practice. You know, like they want to be there and they want to cheer and they want to work harder and do this as a team and whatnot. And it also, it's also different for me because I was like a back spot and a base for my whole like high school career, and now I'm a flyer. So like it's
that's awesome.
Different, and like I'm still learning, and like I really enjoy it. And like my bases, they really don't get mad. And like in high school, because like something wouldn't hit, they would be like, "It's all your fault. It's this person's fault. It's this person's fault." But like nobody has done that. Like it's a team effort, and it's just like it's so much better.
That's really cool. And I'm sure it's a hard transition from a base to a flyer.
it was definitely like the first practice because I tried out as a back spot. So like the first practice, my coach, she came up to me and she was like, "So since you're so small," like because my back spot is like literally 6 foot. She's so tall. And they were like, "Well, since you're so small, we're going to try flying." And I was like, oh, okay. And she was like, "Have you done it before?" And I was like once or twice. And she was like, okay, well, we're gonna try it and whatnot. And then it worked. And she was like, "Okay, so I guess you're a flyer." And I was like, "Okay, great."
My days of cheerleading, I was also like very tall for my age, and I was, 6'7" at the time, but I was always a base, occasionally a back spot. And Kaylee was always a flyer. She always was a flyer because she was so tiny. She was like half my size. Like, so she was a flyer. And I know how hard it is to fly because, hearing
There's
from
so
her
many
and
different things you have to do just to even stand up.
Because you have to try and keep your own balance more or less too. Like, okay, standing, walking around, that's one thing. And then, standing on somebody's hands and it's so different. And, you have to trust them. So then there's trust in it. And
and that's like, it's completely different because in high school, I felt like everyone trusted each other to an extent, but like once you were in the air, like it was just up in the air. Like you didn't know who was going to catch you just because like, we're younger and we don't necessarily know exactly like what we're doing. And like, we were good, whatnot, but it was just like in comparison to like college, I've never doubted anyone catching me because like, regardless, like we were doing a stunt where it was like an invert. So I pushed off their shoulders and I stood straight up and our stunt was going backwards. So we were moving back and everyone was like ran and they were like, "Oh my gosh, don't fall." And it was just like, it was so different because like high school, you just had like 2 spots because we had so many people. It was like, there's 2 other people and like, good luck. So it's just crazy.
Yeah, for sure. So what is your major and what are you like striving towards?
Right now, I think I'm going to stick with biology because I really do like it. But my concentration right now is botany. But
Mm-hmm.
I only chose that because I'm still unsure. But I think I want to try, I think I'm going to try to take a class in like micro or like molecular or something just to see how that is. And then maybe switch to micro as my
That's
concentration.
interesting. Yeah, my mom tells me I should just take microbiology for the fun of it if I have a spare credit in
Yeah.
there. And
It seems like so much fun because one of the girls that I cheer with, she's like basically on the same path, but she's double majoring in biology and in Spanish. So
wow,
she has like completely different classes, but she said that she either chose botany or something else. But she said that like the micro for our school, like everything is pretty much the same. So like if you want, it's like one less like math class or something. So I was like, shoot, I'm gonna take that because I suck at math.
yeah, math classes are not what I would choose to take. I am
Yeah.
on my last one and I'm so excited to be done with it.
I'm gonna take some this summer because like I have to have like three or something. It's something crazy, but like it's just terrible. I hate math.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think being a military child, do you think that affected choosing biology in any way or
I think in a sense, yes, because I don't think well, at first I wanted to be a nurse because I was always at the hospital and like I
yeah,
was like
it
I
was your second
always
home?
yeah, and like I love the nurses and like they would let me like flush pick lines or
They're
like
so
help administer.
nice.
Yes, I love them so much. And like I was just so interested because like they were literally healing people right in front of me and I got to help and do it. And so at first I did consider nursing for a while, but then like I started looking into it and I was just like, I don't really necessarily think that nursing is for me because I like helping people, but like I cannot tolerate people for this like the length that they can.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I think I would just do better doing it because I love science, you know. And I was just like, I'm just gonna pick a science major and then go from there. So
Yeah. Biology is a
technically,
good
yeah.
basic one too.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's
I
very
mean,
universal.
if you wanted to do nursing still, like for
Mm-hmm.
some reason, it's a branch of biology more or
Yeah.
less. You could do
Mm-hmm.
it as like a master's degree, or I think they offer nursing as a doctorate, or,
Mm-hmm.
you still have that opportunity to
Oh
do.
yeah. But the more that I think about just biology in general, I've been looking into like forensic type of stuff because
Yeah.
I love all that stuff. And I did a project over some, I think it was forensic laboratory technician, I think. And it sounds so fun. Like, I mean, in a good way, not like in a like, oh, it's so fun you get to look at dead bodies. No, it sounds fun because you get to go on scene, depending on, who you're working with.
Right.
But like, you get to go on scene and like take samples and take pictures and like be there and like interact because I'm like a hands-on learner. Like I literally have to have it like in front of me. Like for math, like I literally have to have it in front of me. Like people explain it and like,
Yeah.
oh, like this piece of pizza will blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like I just have to have like interaction, like real stuff for like
Yeah.
it's to stay in my brain.
Yeah. And I mean, math is very hands on to begin with, I think, too. So I do not blame you. And then,
Mm-hmm.
taking that onto your career and, that's really interesting. You could easily move back to DC to do that.
Oh yes,
So,
I was thinking about that because it said like the most popular locations, like obviously like Atlanta and like Seattle and stuff. And I love Seattle. I visited, I don't remember when I visited Seattle, but the time that I did go, oh my gosh, I was in like I'm in love with it because I also am a very I'm a Twilight like person. I haven't read the books yet, but since I was there, it was just like so overwhelming, but in a good way. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I would literally live here. Like it's so beautiful. Oh, I love it.
yeah. And, you know, that's one thing that I'm thankful for is like being able to travel so much. And then, I want to travel so much, like,
Mm-hmm.
on my own. And I want to travel with my kids and my family. Like,
Me
so
too.
that's something that I'm really,
That's like I'm very thankful that we've had all these opportunities, like the Tom Hanks thing that we did a long time ago.
Yes.
Well, not really a long time ago, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And the Kelly Clarkson stuff, because we were able to travel as a family, and we went to, I'm pretty sure it was LA, and we got to like explore and like be a part of stuff that like we've never been exposed to, like actual like real camera, like this is like real life, you know what I mean? Like there's literally Tom Hanks in front of us talking to us. Like we're on the same, like, you know, it's just crazy because like this is real life, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the same with the Kelly Clarkson thing. Like they gave us like it's not necessarily a script, but it's just like they need to know what you're saying ahead of time. So they make a script. And like it was just so crazy because I was just like, I never thought like this is how it worked. You know what I mean? Like you go and get hair and makeup, you get a script, you get this, you have to do this, you have this time, this, and I was just like, it was so like mind opening because like it was just crazy, but it was just fun that I got to experience it with my family because we'll still talk about it time to time.
Yeah. After doing like this military makeover thing, I will never look at reality TV the same again.
Oh yeah.
You seeing the behind the scenes, like I will never look at it the same again. So much work gets put into it that I could.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, the people you meet too off of this, we've met some incredible people and, you know, celebrity or not, like just meeting these people and how much they actually do care.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I also like because I'm still in contact with my friend Leah. Like we have each other on Snapchat and like Instagram and Facebook and stuff. And like time to time we'll message each other. And it's just like it's so cool. And it's also like kind of crazy that like now that we also have like social media and stuff, we can actually keep up with these people and like still be friends and stuff. So like that's really cool. And like we were at like the Maryland, like the hospital and stuff with these other two girls. And like sometimes we keep up with them and whatnot. And it's just crazy to see how like we all grow and we all change and all this stuff. Like it's just crazy.
Yeah. And, you know, if this would have happened, like it was 10 years ago, but if it would have happened like, you know, 20, 30 years ago, we wouldn't have had social media or, you know, even really phones at the time to keep in contact with these people. And, you know, we wouldn't have these lifelong friends really that we have now.
And that's like whenever my dad first got injured, my friend Elizabeth, I'm still friends with her and I hang out with her as much as we can, but she goes to Belmont. And so it's, you know, completely different schedules and whatnot. But every New Year's Eve, even before my dad got injured, we would spend it together. And so like that's like a cute and fun tradition that we do. Like we try to do every year. And so like that's also something because like she was sincerely like she was there the whole time. And like occasionally like some memories will pop up and like we had Team Allen shirts. I don't know if you remember those.
Yeah.
They're like the blue shirt with like the Superman like Allen thing. And so she would be like, oh my, and she like found the shirt or she found a picture and she was like, look what I found. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? And it's just so cute.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, the stories that come out of this, like military or not, like having just those moments to, you know, traditions, you remember them for the rest of your life. And some of them are brand new. Like, okay, for Dad's alive day, the day he got hurt, we try to go to Disney as much as we can.
Oh yeah, that's like for my dad's alive day, we normally bake a cake or something. Just something.
It's not like a lot of people would think that it's a day to be sad and, you know, mourn and like, no, it's a day to celebrate.
Yeah, it's like you normally either like we'll get him something or like a cake or like cookies or something. We just do something for it because just like, oh, hey, you know, you made another year. Like a birthday.
Congratulations. Yeah, it's the second birthday. Dad has a shirt. I forget exactly what it says, but it says something like, everyone has a birthday, but only heroes have an alive day.
Yeah.
Like they actually survived. Like they're actually, you know, they're still living their life. Like nothing's stopped them. And so we celebrate and it's just like a second birthday.
It really is.
Yeah. So last question. How has military life affected you and what advice do you have?
I think military just in general has affected me in a positive way because I feel like whenever my dad got injured, I had to mature a little bit faster than
For sure.
all of my friends, because like you have to caregive and you have to step up and you have to like help your mom if she needs you to hold this, or help him and all that stuff. So I do feel like it has made me mature more. And so like when my friends are acting their age, I'm like, why are they doing that? That's so dumb. You know what I mean? And like I forget, like, oh, probably I technically should be acting like them, but I'm
Right.
not, because
And we lost a lot of our childhood.
yeah.
We lost like 10 and up. Like we lost that. We weren't able to be our child. We weren't able to have that inner
And
child.
like
So
it kind of is a good thing and a bad thing, because like I don't necessarily look at it as a bad thing. Like I make jokes. I'm like, haha, I lost some of my childhood. But like it really doesn't affect me that much, because like we still had friends, and like we're still friends with people that we've known. Like our friend Maddie, she lived next door to us. And during all this, she became basically like our third sister, and she still is. And it's just crazy because like we're still in contact with her, and like she was like involved, and like she would help and sometimes and whatnot. It was just crazy, like all the different stuff. And she was also a military family as well. So it was like she understood, and that's why we all basically got along. Like she would have sleepovers like every day because she was homeschooled too.
Yeah.
And so it's just crazy how like the military like changes you for the better, and like you all have like a common understanding of one another.
Sure. And it's hard to think back and wonder what I would have done, in my teenage years if I wasn't doing what I had to do. But at the same point, I'm like, I have grown so much than I would have, like, leadership, like caretaking, and, actually being more a part of the family instead of like I wasn't out with my friends, all the time. I wasn't doing things like that. So for sure.
That's like, yeah, whenever that would happen and I was in like DC and my friends that I had at school would hang out, I was like, man, it really sucks because like I couldn't hang out with them, and like I wanted to, but like obviously I'm in a whole different state, you know what I mean? Like so far away. And it was like I would get sad time to time, but then like they'd be like, hey, like whenever Roblox was popping and cool, like, hey, let's play some Roblox. I'm like, oh, okay, like let's play Minecraft, let's play webcams, let's do da. And they tried as best as they could. So that was good.
That's really awesome. What piece of advice do you have? To another military child or a civilian, like who knows a military child, whatever.
I guess have an open mind to change, regardless if it's for good or for the worse, because you never know how it's going to change you. And you just have to be open-minded to like whatever happens.
Yeah, I think that's great. And, none of us expect, for anything to happen. Like we say, okay, you're going to go on deployment. Okay, bye. Like we'll see you in, a year. Like, ours was 400 days. Like we'll see you then. And, we don't expect for
I was going to say, I never expected my father to be injured, just because like that just it never crossed my mind until, well, I must have coughed until it happened. And then I was just like, this actually happens. Like, it's not just like it's not just like a small amount of people. Like this is happening like every single day.
For sure. There's always another soldier who comes back. They're thankful that they are still alive because it could have been much worse, but they're now having to live with the repercussions of the injuries that they have. And it's not just them who have to deal with it, it's the families too.
Yeah. And especially like for our family, it has brought us together more. And I assume it probably has for your family too.
Yes, for sure.
And that's like, even to for my grandma, it's brought us all closer together, because my grandma, whenever this all started happening, my grandma was the one who came down, because she lives in Nashville. And she came down to Clarksville, and she basically was like our second mom, because my mom was gone the weeks and whatnot. And so my grandma was there whenever my mom was gone. So she was taking care of us, taking us to school, feeding us, all that stuff. And so like that also made us closer to our grandma, because she was there and she got to like, be there with us whenever we were like growing up and going through this. So like it has like brought us closer together.
Yeah, I would say the same. I mean, and even just in the four of us, like we had only known Ohio
Mm-hmm.
because we hadn't moved. We were reserved, so we didn't move. And
Mm-hmm.
my dad was a military child growing up, so he kind of knew the story of moving and, going through that, but we had never learned that. So moving was definitely a challenge, but we had the four of us. So
Mm-hmm.
that was like our stable environment for us
Mm-hmm.
to keep us going through that.
Yeah, that's like whenever my mom was like, okay, so like, I don't remember if I'm pretty sure she asked us if like we wanted to like move up to Maryland. And we were like, I mean, I guess, because we were like, we don't really care. We're kids. Like, you tell us what to do.
Yeah.
And so like whenever we first moved up there, we were like, oh, this is cool, whatever. And then we started homeschooling and like we started going to like different stuff. And we were like, we could live here forever. Like me and my sister still talk
Yeah.
about it. Like we would literally move back in a heartbeat if we had the opportunity, or just like even just go for like a few days. Like it doesn't matter. Like we just love being there.
And even in living in the Fisher house, it's not the ideal environment that we want to live in. It's like, more or less a hotel room. And, just the memories that come out of that is incredible because, it makes you closer as a family. You're all living, in one room. And we got fortunate to have two rooms at one point. So we're all, still living in this very, very tight space. And but those were the fun times. Like, we have so many good memories from that.
I was about to say us too. And like, whenever we moved to the Fisher house, we brought like our stuff down. So we didn't really have toys. And then I don't remember if someone gave us a Barbie house, but like, that big Barbie dream house with like the pool elevator. We got that. And like, we were over the moon about it. And we even brought it. So like after we were done at the Fisher house, we were able to move into a small apartment. And we even brought it there. And then like we just started to like, actually, since my sister and I shared a room, since we actually had a room, we like got more toys and we got to be able to do this. And then we eventually got into gymnastics, which also made us want to stay even more because we were like, we don't want to go home. We want to do gymnastics. You know what I mean? And like, I think it was called Silver Stars. I think so. And it was so fun. Like it's like I said, like Maryland is just like, instead of it being like a negative place like you visit, it's just like, oh my gosh, do you remember when we drove down the street and we went to gymnastics, or we went to walk down the street to, I think it was like Giant, like the grocery store, and like it's just so much fun, like because we're like, oh my gosh, remember when we were there, remember this, and it's just, I love it.
It's very much nostalgic, thinking back on all of that. And we went back to Texas right before shutdowns and lockdowns happened. So we were very thankful we got to do that. And just, we stayed in the same hotel we stayed in for about 3 months. We stayed there and, walking past the room that we were in and, getting breakfast there like we normally would and driving past the hospital and the Fisher house. It just brought so many memories back.
And like almost every memory that I have is like a really good one. And so like that's also why, because like I remember we used to go to these dinners. I think it was I'm gonna say it wrong, Alethea dinners, I think. And like me and Ryan being the only kids with a whole bunch of adults, we would get like random prizes and all this stuff. And we would stay out till like 12, 1 a.m. And then we were like party animals for like being like 8 years old. And like we talked about that. We were like, do you remember whenever we got back and it was like 2 or 3 in the morning and we just like looked out the window and we were like, yeah, it's just so random.
Yeah. And, being the only kids for so long and being surrounded by these adults who most of them didn't even have kids for us. It was like we became their kids. Like they adopted us. They spoiled us.
Yes, that's like when we lived in the apartment, it's like, because the apartment's like a hall like this. It's so weird. And our doors were like this, and we lived on the left side, and then Aaron and Eliza lived on the right side, and my mom was in contact with Eliza. So I think it was for Yellow Ribbon Fund before she like started working for them. And she was like, yeah, I'm in this, the apartment, whatever number. And she was like, wait, this number? And she was like, yeah. And she was like, I'm right next door. And she was like, no, you're not. And she goes outside and they both open the door and they're like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? And then they started becoming like our second parents. Like Aaron and Eliza would take us out for ice cream or take us to do this or take us down to the grocery store. And like, just like, it was so much fun.
Yeah, there are so many good memories and, thinking back, and it just makes me feel like those were the simpler times, and,
Mm-hmm.
they were so hard, and, living basically in and out of a hospital, the Fisher House, still having to go to school, still having to make friends. Like, that was a hard time, and I can't even imagine having to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
But those were the times that, I miss the most,
Me too.
because they were so much easier, and I had so many more opportunities then. And not saying I don't have any now, because I have plenty now. But, those were just the simpler times.
Yeah, I think the same as well, because like it was just like, oh, you're a kid homeschooled in Maryland. Like, I honestly didn't think it could get any better, just because it's like, well, you're in Maryland, so you can go to this museum, you can go to this, you can go to this embassy, this da 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 da. And like we had so many different opportunities as a family. Like we would go to like different embassies, like New Zealand and Australia and all
Yeah.
that. And it was just like, it was so much fun, because a lot of people just don't get the opportunity, just because like I don't know, it's just different.
Yeah, the military life definitely changes everything. And then you add the injuries on top of that, it definitely creates a whole new atmosphere for you to live in.
It does.
Yeah. Well, do you have any last minute things you would like to add?
I mean, I don't think so, unless you are curious about anything.
I think that covered like everything. And it was so nice getting to know your story and compare ours together. So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Sharing your story. Yes, of course.
I appreciated it. It was really fun.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Grace of a Military Child podcast. For more inspiring stories like these, be sure to review, like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. You can also find us on @Grace of a Military Child podcast on Instagram, and be sure to check out our YouTube page. If you are or know of a military child who would like to be featured on an episode of this podcast, DM us on Instagram. Be sure to tune in next week when we hear another inspiring story. Until then.